Today on the Clean Power Hour, 800 gigawatts of U.S. solar by 2035. Yes! Solar and storage saved us from the firestorm. Ooh, looking forward to that one. Marshall Plan for Middle America unveiled. And welcome to episode 20 of the Clean Power Hour. I'm Tim Montague, your co-host, and welcome to my co-host, John Weaver, the commercial solar guy.
Hey, Timothy, how do you do today?
I got a fist pump in there. It's a
saw
new
that.
day. It's a new day in America, my friend. And I was just talking with Ryan Simpson at Trina Solar. He was kind enough to come on the podcast, and we were talking about tariffs and growth of the industry. And, I didn't realize that tariffs are 20% on solar modules. That's a real significant pain point. And I just don't think that's the way to solve our economic woes. But
That's a good start. I like the Trina guys. I like their modules. 20%, that turns into 15% around February 7th, 10th-ish, something of that nature. So, unless of course the tax people extend it another couple of years, which has been submitted. But we'll see. So
yeah, I'm banking on an extension of the ITC for sure at 30%. I think that's a no-brainer. As for accelerating the declination of the tariffs, I see that also happening, but we'll see.
Yeah.
So, speaking of new administration in Washington, you've done a wonderful blog post on this topic. So why don't we get right into the news? And
the news it is.
The title of your story is What Biden Might Do for Solar. Tell us what you've laid out, and I'm going to put it on screen here in just a second.
Sure. So, of course, with various political groups, there's always a different angle that people want to go. And President-elect Joseph Biden put out his perspective with a document saying that he believes, or that he's going to make a goal, and this is a goal, of course, of our power grid having 100% clean electricity by 2035, which is 15 years away, not that far. And so I just did some real rough math suggesting that we would need at least 30% of that electricity to come from solar power. And, another 30% possibly coming from the wind, 20% from nuclear, 10% from hydroelectricity. And so, 30 from solar. And if we do that, what do we need? How much volume do we need? And so, you're right at the chart, perfect timing. And so I did some rough math to say, okay, if we're at around 3% of electricity in the United States from solar, and we're at 80 gigs, what do we need to get to 30%? Well, we need 10x. We need 800 gigs of solar. We need it by 2035. I did a little Excel spreadsheet, fiddled with the math, and I said, okay, if we've had 80, and that first row is, infinity. So since Neanderthal were breaking rocks through the end of last year, we had 80 gigs of solar installed. That number is actually off a little bit, but it's close enough. And then this year we may install 18 to 20. We'll probably install more than 20, but again, close. And then if we roll that out through 2035, we get 800 gigs, 12.5% growth rate, which actually isn't a bad number. We're going to be installing a lot of solar power. I mean, first off, with the year 2035 at 100 gigawatts of solar being installed in the United States, if we're to meet that number, that's 5 times as much solar as being installed this year. That's a realistic growth rate. That's a lot of capacity. It's, I just wrote another article this morning. It's 1/4 of I totally mixed that up. 800 is about double what's in the current queues through 2023, 2024. So that means we've already applied for half of this capacity. Like some developer somewhere thinks they've got the capacity, half of it. Now they may not be in the right place, and this is a very a very terrible comparison, but 800 gigawatts of solar is not outside of the bounds of a realistic possibility to bring us to 100% clean electricity in the United States. And so it's kind of cool. It's just some neat math to see.
Yeah, and this resonates with the Rewiring America report, which, if I recall correctly, says we need 70 gigawatts of wind and solar coming onto the grid on average between now and 2035 to get to a 90% clean grid. And so I think this is totally doable. Of course, it is significant growth in the industry, but we in the industry realize if humanity is going to step back from the brink of climate chaos, we absolutely have to step on the gas in this manner. It's not just us. The Europeans are doing this, the Chinese are doing this. We need to do our share. And we are sitting in the catbird seat resource wise, us and the Europeans, of course, very similarly. And we just have no excuse not to do this. It's going to create so many jobs, and it's going to actually save consumers money on their power bill. So why wouldn't we do it?
800 gigs, if we just say roughly $1 a watt, that's $800 billion. Which on one hand, that's a lot of money. Make me the richest guy in the world. But if we look at it on a bigger, longer perspective, we spend 20 trillion a year in this country. That's our GDP. Every year, 20 trillion. We spend a few trillion for the military every year. We do have the financial resources to do this. That's without a doubt. We do have the land resources, no questions asked. We have the projects in the development queues, half of them already. Half of the 800 we need are already in the development queues. I wrote an article a few weeks ago about two companies who've got 100 gigawatts between themselves. Two companies. So two companies, we are 1/8, we're 16.5% of the way there, something like that, 12.5. Between just two companies. That's it right there. We can all go home now. We fixed it. Everybody, it's going to be just fine. We found the solar power. So I don't know how much is going to get built. I have no idea. I read all these charts and they're all fanciful and I think they're beautiful. And I am entertained by all of the big numbers. I don't know which ones are going to come true. I'm just going to do my best to hang on as a developer, as a writer, as somebody who's in the industry trying to pay bills. And if 800 gigawatts comes into play and I can stay competent and relevant and hold on, we'll be doing all right.
Yes, we will. So you've found a nice story, I think, from Australia. I've just got the photo on screen now. Somebody has a beautiful ground mount solar array behind their house. What's the deal here?
Well, you should find the other picture from the article. Find that. That's the before one. That's really nice. Now scroll down a little. Yeah, keep
There's
going.
The firestorm.
Yeah. There's the cool solar system inside.
Looks like they have batteries too, huh?
Yes, they do. And we'll talk about that. That's the after.
Mm-hmm.
There's no trees anymore nearby. So what occurred is that there was a fire. Australia has fires just like California. And here's the key detail. They built a water system, a water sprinkler system that was powered by the batteries. And the water sprinkler system kept the house wet, kept it from catching fire from embers flying in the air. Because that's really what catches most houses on fire. Because nowadays we know how to space them out from the trees a little so they don't directly catch. And the key is that the solar system had charged the batteries enough so that when the grid went down, about 6 hours later, when the fire hit, the fire suppression system still had power at midnight to douse the waters, to keep the house safe, and to protect like 5, 6 people in the house. So yeah, we saved the house. Awesome. But 10 human beings are alive because of a solar power and energy storage system in Australia. And, that's not trivial. When we talk about solar having a national security and an individual energy independence value, it's something like this. It's when, pardon, but when the shit hits the fan, you need to be able to protect certain things in certain ways. And solar's distributed nature, energy storage's distributed nature, its individual control system ability, it gives a value, a strength that's beyond most of our math, most of our, the normal math we do. The spreadsheet, that nice simple spreadsheet that you and I like to sell, Tim. It's got a few simple columns in it. It says, here's the money you're going to save, here's what you're going to pay, blah blah blah, tax benefits. But 15% of the United States households have a generator. And this is a generator that creates $0 in value. It makes you feel warm and fuzzy. It makes you know that when the electricity goes off, the lighting's going to be on and you're going to be comfortable. That's zero money generated. Solar plus storage, you're actually going to save money, and you might not die in a fire. So I want to start an organization somewhere with the Department of Defense. And what this organization's purpose is to deploy a nationwide node circuit substation level solar plus storage incentive so that every single circuit across the nation has some level of protection. Every substation has a certain percentage of generation and energy storage on it. Every node across the nation. And I know they've done it in Massachusetts. They've done the model. They haven't they put out the model and they said 1,776 megawatts of solar. No pun intended, maybe. But Massachusetts said that's how much it needed to shore up its power grid on a node level, spread it out. And I'm super interested in that idea of having a super distributed power grid that builds from the ground up. And I would think the United States military would be very interested in that as well, because if anybody does ever breach our shores, they can't take down our manufacturing base. If our manufacturing base is the whole damn country, everybody's house who has a 3D printer will start throwing, whatever we can make in our 3D printers at people. So that's the nation state defense goal, my opinion.
Yeah, and I think the Pentagon even has a formal study that they did identifying climate change as a major security threat. And of course, resiliency is so critical given the scenarios that we see unfolding, the fires, the floods, the storms. And we have the technology, so we just have no excuse not to rebuild the grid from the ground up. It's time for an overhaul. It's great for the economy, and it's great for our residents across the board, right? It's such a win-win. Like, what are we waiting for?
Tim, if we could, I would like to start a new business. You, myself, and whoever our third-party investor is going to be. Elon has probably already thought of it because he has multiple of the pieces within his model, and maybe he's thinking about it for his Mars fund. But we need to start developing some land, and they need to be cul-de-sac sized. And this cul-de-sac, and I'm just going with that size as my first sizing, it might need to be multiple cul-de-sacs in order to scale appropriately, but there'll be a minimum logical size where we combine residential solar, shipping containers of energy storage, and shipping containers of food production. We'll need both meat and vegetable production. And then a network of computers and 3D printers across all these residences. And so there we have food, we have electricity generation, we have manufacturing, we have computing resources. We'll need something. Maybe we can get some of those cool solar panels that will suck air, humidity straight from the air. They do like, one of those panels does at least one person's worth of water per day. So, 2.5 solar water panels per household. And then suddenly we have this minimal living unit that can make its own food. It'll have to figure out how to do some mining, of course. So, but we'll be able to distribute the mining via the Amazon mini drone um, uh, swarms that move across the nation state in the year 2100. And but within that, you'll have a defensible unit where you can at least make your food, fix some stuff, maybe make some bullets, and live in a semi-normal way after the apocalypse hits, of course. So, Tim, if we could get together and start building that out, I got to do something after I retire from this solar gig.
Well, I'm totally game. I am totally game. And so let's talk about what's going on a little bit in the Midwest. And this bleeds
This
over
is your
to
article. This is your article, so you got to talk about this one. What did you find?
You mean you can't carry me the whole hour, John? Come on, man.
I could carry this thing for 3 hours if you really ask me, but I want to hear you talk about it.
So here's a great story. Mayors unveil $60 billion plan to support Midwest energy transition. It's led by Bill Peduto, who's the mayor of Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. Apparently, the Ohio Valley region, is staged to lose 100,000 jobs in the next few years because of declining fossil industries, among other things. And so these mayors have hatched a Marshall Plan for Middle America. The Marshall Plan is famous for rebuilding Europe after World War II. It's a real thing. And we absolutely can and should do this type of transitional investment in regions. I love it that mayors are taking a stand. I believe in democracy at the local level more than I do at the federal level. It's a both and. We need federal leadership as well. But I'm thrilled to see some mayors stepping up here from Kentucky, Ohio, and West Virginia. And, $60 billion is what, 60 gigawatts of solar?
Yeah, roughly.
And you can do a lot with 60 gigawatts of solar. That is a lot of jobs. It is a lot of clean power for the grid. And, of course, we need to modernize that grid in the process of installing a lot of solar. So this is just a very cool story that was reported in Smart Cities.
Right there, it's showing some of the, if you scroll up a little bit, it shows what it wants to break down the money for. 15 billion for equipment, 15 for workforce development. That's interesting. 15 in tax incentives to push local manufacturing. And then of course, retrofits for buildings, which, the building thing is always interesting. I've always wanted to own a structure and slowly build it out and make it just into a really high quality structure and have, 5-10 companies in it that are complementary, a marketing company, a place for babysitting kids, one place for food, and then 20, all the rest of these companies that might know each other and may be able to give each other leads. But with that, take one of these old buildings in New Bedford, these old brick textile factories from the late 1800s that ran off water power, and turn it into a modern structure. They got these huge, thick walls. We can drive vehicles across the roof when we do our solar work. They're so strong. But one guy that we did solar for, he literally buys coal. He literally buys a chunk of coal and throws it in his furnace.
Yeah.
And he keeps the building warm. He says it's like $20. He goes, it's cheap. And it makes me cry. But that's,
Well, coal is 12 times more dense than wood, and oil is 4 times more dense on a per volume basis than coal. So, we transitioned from wood to coal. It took 100 years for that transition. So these transitions do take time, which is why we have to step on the gas and really get our finger out of our, I want to reiterate this plan is sweet, as you pointed out, that it's got energy efficiency, okay, equal parts energy efficiency, new clean renewable energy, manufacturing, and workforce development. That just seems like a very nice four-legged stool, and let's go. I'm ready.
If we do have a lot of opportunity for upgrading U.S. infrastructure, it's challenging though. I watch the people around me, multiple gentlemen that I work with who owns multiple structures. I watch as they buy old buildings, upgrade them, fix them, and I get to watch because I'm the guy that does solar. Because we're just in Massachusetts, you make use of your roof. If you have, 10,000 square feet, up to 100,000 square feet, it's foolish not to make that extra revenue off your roof. And so it just happens. And so I watch as these gentlemen develop these structures and attempt to fill them. And I know there's a lot of slack in the corporate space. And so for a person who owns the structure, who doesn't pay the bills, there's a disconnect. And I wonder, and with our electricity bills generally being so cheap relative to our other overall costs, I always wonder how to motivate these people to do this stuff, to upgrade their structure. In Massachusetts, we're lucky we have a solar program that lets the capital flow directly to the investor versus the electricity user. So that allows a building owner to spend their own cash and put a project on the roof and then take the revenue instead of having to use electricity there. Because oftentimes, most of the time, it's not that way. But I would love to see that type of plan develop. I would love to see our infrastructure develop in the U.S. And because on multiple levels, I mean, you hear about the bridges. My brother, he's a civil engineer. He loves the idea of building bridges. He says that was his number one goal he wanted to do when he got his civil degree, was just to build a bridge. I was like, cool. He was also in the Army, so he probably blew up some bridges. But it's just, construction and building, it drives so much. And it would just be neat to see it. This shift, this 100,000 jobs that'll be lost due to the transition from fossils, it's going to be faster than we expect, because 2/3 of the coal that we burn is lost to waste heat. It's going to happen fast. We got to do something, and if it's upgrading buildings to use less electricity, it's going to accelerate that coal decline even faster. It's going to accelerate the natural gas decline that's about to start even faster. So we do have to consider this. We do have to consider it, and this is a good plan. At minimum, it's an interesting plan.
It is so interesting that Pennsylvania is clinging to the fracking industry the way it is. I saw a documentary, I don't know what it's called now off the top of my head, but about that industry, and it is a house of cards. Fracking has not been economical, and it is a industry waiting to collapse. So the writing is on the wall, folks. If you're in the fossil industry, jump over to wind, solar, and storage. Your skills translate. There's a pure growth opportunity for the next 50 years. You and your children and your children's children can all find meaningful work in solar, wind, and storage. You may not find it exactly geographically where you want to, but that is always the case with economic opportunities. And so you have to go where the opportunities lie. Let's move on to rare earths. I love this topic. We have to mine a lot of lithium and nickel in the coming years to fuel this wind, solar, and storage. What's the story, John?
So this is just a press release. First off, this is just some random company putting their name out there. I don't know if there's any validity to what they've got as an opportunity, but it's an important press release to talk about because it lines up with a few other things. And I wanted to put it right after this fossil article in the Ohio River Valley. Because first off, the Ohio River Valley is kind of close to my heart. I went to school literally on it. Hanover College in southern Indiana is on the north side of the Ohio River, and we could throw rocks at Kentucky. That's, that was who was on the southern half. So it's my home. Part of my heart's there. And And so this company's pitching the rare earth thing. So a couple items have occurred. First, Biden, as part of his campaigning, went to mining companies and unions and talked about having significant support for the mining and manufacturing of goods related to batteries. And so he spoke to miners, he spoke to various groups who might who might normally be pushed back from an environmental standpoint from a politically left aligned group. But Biden has reached out and said, listen, this is something that I think is important for the nation state from a strategic standpoint, for us to be manufacturing, for us to be mining, doing these things. So he reached out. Two, a lot of coal has rare earths embedded in it. And I've heard multiple times references to switching the coal mining facilities into rare earth mining facilities. Now, I've never delved into it to see if like the Wyoming seams have it or if the Appalachian seams or where you can find it. But some of those jobs that you were just talking about making a transition to, they might not even have to leave the job site. Some of them, what percentage, I don't know, but some of them, in Battery Day, Elon spoke about literally having their own lithium mining from the clay flats, from the salt flats, from the clay area. And they were talking about how they can get lithium out of that. The Salton Sea in California. Another person we should be covering, Sonny. I can't remember his last name right now, but he's really awesome. He writes for the LA Times. And Sammy Roth, geez, that's his name. Sammy Roth. He writes about the Salton Sea. And California is going to be pushing the Salton Sea and lithium ion extraction via geothermal processes. So, this press release, cool, whoever the heck they are, USA Rare Earth LLC. That's the worst business name ever. But whatever, they got their point across. So, they have an idea and a place to get rare earths. Now, solar panels, we don't use rare earths for 96%. First Solar does in Ohio, who's a manufacturer. They use it for their thin film product. Batteries use it. Wind turbines use it. Rare earths matter. They're not as rare as they sound. But this aligned with the lithium mining might lead to some changes in the US. If we could put the green halo atop mining of renewable energy and we up our game to modern standards using electric extraction vehicles, managing the water outflow from these regions, we're going to have to mine unless the species decides to step its game back and live in the woods again. We're going to mine, and I'd rather mine in a responsible manner. And it'd be great if some of these fossil jobs could switch to mining resources for the renewable industry. That would be a wonderful transition, in my opinion.
So, yeah, just to recap, that story is about a mining company that is embracing solar and other renewables as a way to offset their carbon footprint, right? They want to make green lithium, basically. There's a lot of talk about green hydrogen. We need green lithium also, where they're not just burning fossil fuels endlessly to run their operation, but they're actually electrifying their operation and using renewables.
Yeah, it's funny. I didn't even talk about that part until the very, very end because I was more excited about the broader mining push that's been occurring in the U.S. and that Biden has suggested during his campaigning that he would support those types of things in addition to Musk and his mining push. So it's all of that. And then if at the end, if we can green it and folks like this can do that kind of stuff, oh man, we're turning an important corner. And I think that's not trivial. If we can clean up the whole supply chain, that is not trivial.
Absolutely. Well, another story from Tennessee here in the Tennessean. Nashville announces massive solar array project with Vanderbilt University. Tennessee is blessed with one of our country's largest solar developers, a company called Silicon Ranch. And this is a photo of a Silicon Ranch project, but this is a 125 megawatt solar project that's being planned for the Nashville area. It's going to offset 100% of Vanderbilt's energy, right? So take them to 100% clean power, and then the leftover will drive Metro Nashville to 1/3 of its goal for renewable energy supply. So it's a wonderful thing. The Tennessee Valley Authority is involved. And what I learned about the TVA is famous in the energy industry, right? There was a lot of nuclear research there. They operate numerous power facilities, including hydro and coal burning power plants. It is a government owned business, but it doesn't get government funds. So it operates more like a private company. And one of their core missions is economic development. This was a region that was hit very hard during the Great Depression. And so the TVA was a works program, basically, right, to put people back to work. And ever since, it has become a part of the fabric of the region. And the former governor, Phil Bredesen, I'm not saying that right, probably, but is now the former governor of Tennessee, now runs Silicon Ranch. So go Tennessee. There's a lot of solar happening in Tennessee. I can't wait to get down there and fly over some of these projects with my Mini.
So TVA has been known for pushing back a lot against clean stuff. They're a challenging utility. Writing for PV Magazine, I got to cover them a lot. But in their support, they have a lot of hydro and they have a lot of nuclear, so they're already heavily CO2 free. But not CO2 free, just 60-80% CO2 free. So solid numbers. They need a lot more solar, a lot more storage, and the whole region, because it's more than just Tennessee that gets that electricity. But they could, any electricity they generate in that area, anything in the southeast. I just love seeing solar getting built in the southeast. I'm in Tennessee a lot. My mom lives in northern West Carolina, so we just hop across the mountain, go down to Dolly World, Gatlinburg, have a great time. So I like seeing solar in Tennessee.
Tennessee's like Illinois on its side. Illinois is very long and skinny. It's 6 hours tip to toe, and Tennessee is the east-west version of that. So,
Okay.
um,
Don't they touch like over here, or is that Kentucky? Is there like a connection way that's western portion of Tennessee and southern Illinois, or does that not connect down there?
oh yeah, it touches.
Oh, okay.
I
Nice.
think both
Nice.
Kentucky and Tennessee touch Illinois. Follows the river down there, but the Ohio River.
Yep.
All righty, so we've got two final stories for you. Another story here about retired EV batteries, which is so important. We have to plan for this now, right? Because we're about to have an avalanche of used car batteries, EV cars, not just.
EVs. Yep. Well, we're not going to have those big lead batteries anymore. Just here. So I like this story because I often get annoyed by people who say, after 10 years, that lithium ion battery is going to be bad and solar+storage will never work. And they're wrong. Hey, I'm going to repeat that. Hey, Tim, did you hear that? Did you hear what I said? I said they're wrong. And and the thing is, this is a Greenpeace report. And what they did is they looked at a projection of how many electric cars could be in the world and retiring by 2030, and then how much of the world would need stationary energy storage. And so they just did some math, and they said roughly in their equations, it could be that the excess electric car batteries, or the dead ones that are at 80% of their original output, they could be used straight up to cover the power grid's needs. And it's not a perfect equation because, where those batteries are and where they have to be, and it may not line up, but it's close, and it's enough that it gives us some perspective on the amount of energy storage we need for the grid, the amount of manufacturing that we're already doing, and that it's going to be cheaper than we're already projecting it in our overly optimistic perspectives that I'm throwing out there. For instance, I'm saying things like batteries are going to cost $40 per kilowatt hour in a shipping container, 50, maybe 100. And I think it's going to be even cheaper. It's going to be 20, 30, $40 per kilowatt hour because stationary batteries, they have less of an issue with the space they're using. If a battery's at 80%, that's okay. We'll just have 20% more land. Well, batteries are already super dense. And one way to get 20% more land is that we could stack the shipping containers. Okay, great. Now we've just doubled it and we got our land space back. So I'm not worried about our ability to manufacture enough batteries to support the world, nor am I worried about the price. Just like solar power has gone from being it's too expensive, it'll never work, it'll never scale, to oh my gosh, there's so much solar and it's so cheap, we don't know what to do with it. The same thing is going to happen with batteries. But like you started when we started talking on this segment, we need to manage it. We need to be very, very conscious of how we're going forward with it. And there are a lot of people who are. JB Straubel, he was one of the founders at Tesla, and he recently spun off to start a battery recycling effort. The solar panel industry has a lot of pressure on it right now to make sure it recycles properly. I think the United States is going to retire 4 million solar panels this year, per somebody who I follow on Twitter. And so we do have to consider it, but I am optimistic that not only are we going to consider it and we're going to take it from being a liability, but in terms of energy storage in our cars, we're going to turn it into a net benefit that saves us money and recycling and a whole bunch of stuff. And I think this article is going to give us one path. We may not use 100% of recycled batteries for the grid, but who cares if we use 60%? Or it's going to make electricity cheaper and ease our stresses as we move forward. So I like it.
Here's JB Straubel's company. It's called Redwood Materials. There's 1 billion cars in the world. We sell 65 million new vehicles per year. So if we just did a straight energy transition, we could do that in 15 years. Okay. If you divide 65 into 1,000, so you can get 1 billion cars on the road. The cool thing about EVs and autonomous vehicles is that autonomous vehicles are going to replace 5 ICE engine vehicles. So we're going to need many fewer vehicles when we have transportation as a service. And I can see converting, for example, parking lots and parking ramps to battery storage facilities. We need real estate. We're going to have lots of real estate. Something like a third, I think, John, of big cities is parking lots. It's a huge footprint, and we're going to need a lot less parking lots. I'm not the only person saying this. There's many, many transportation experts who are beating this drum. And so, of course, we're going to need a lot of batteries. We're going to recycle those and convert them to stationary storage, which makes perfect sense, and take all the ICE engines off the road somewhere in the 2035 to 2050 range. It's unpredictable how quickly, but sooner is better.
The United Kingdom just pulled their they're in the process of adjusting their no gas cars forward to 2030.
Yes.
Less than 10 years away. Less than 10 years.
They are accelerating.
Accelerating, yes. They took this thing that everybody was like, oh my God, that's too aggressive. You can't do that. That's crazy. And then they made it faster. which is something, sorry, I want to go off on a little bit of a tangent here. Every single year, these groups that are super smart, the projection groups who have to put themselves out there and say, okay, we're going to build this much. And we're going to look at 200 countries and we're going to estimate this much. And we're going to look at 1 million researchers and we're going to estimate the price falls this much. And, it's a tough job. But I noticed that every single year we're like, oh, it's cheaper than we ever thought. And it's more than we ever thought. And it's faster than we ever thought. Every year it happens. And so all these numbers that we have, the politicians that say 2035, the politicians, they're actually not going out on a limb. they're actually doing something that their economic ministers and technical ministers have said, nah, this is actually quite possible. And all we got to do is this, this, and this. And they're like, oh, okay, so this won't make me look foolish? No, not at all. Go for it. And then they're like, no bad cars. And these people aren't the risk takers. The risk takers are like the scientists and the universities who are saying, listen, build this many cars, do this analysis, adjust this pricing. It's the Greenpeaces who are projecting things way, way far ahead. The activists who just care deeply and are willing to put their name on the line for aggressive projections. And so these things are coming fast. And like you said, Tim, accelerating. Hey, Tim, we didn't talk about something before we jump into this last story about this one company. We didn't talk about, Tim?
How awesome it is to drive a Model Y.
Yeah, it's very closely related to that, but we didn't talk about that. What happened the other day with Tesla and the S&P?
Oh, yes, indeed. S&P 500. Tesla is now officially in the S&P. I texted my brother. I said, it's time to rebalance your portfolio. He still hasn't gotten in on the Tesla stock. And this is just the beginning. So now Tesla, I saw a story this morning. Tesla's going to be in the top 15 companies in the S&P. It's in there with the big boys now, with the Apples of the world, and it's in the upper echelon already. And they're only getting started. They only have 2 factories that are pumping out cars, people. They're going to have 60 factories in a few years. That's the long game here. Thank you for reminding me. We also landed some astronauts on the space station launched by SpaceX, which we didn't talk about. I talked about that a little bit on my personal vlog, but that was a big day with Mission 1 on Sunday evening. Did you watch that at all? Can you hear me?
Yep, can hear you just great. Sorry about that.
Oh, I asked you if you watched Mission 1 launch at all.
Oh, I didn't hear that. Sorry, I guess my computer was staticky for a second. I heard you talking about it, but I did watch it launch. I did watch the hardware land. I did not see the actual front piece of the unit connect with the International Space Station. I was watching previews, but they were covering that, so I missed that. But I did watch the launch. The launch was pretty cool.
So the other cool thing happening in the United States with Tesla is that Tesla is now running construction 24/7 at Giga Texas. I call it Terra Texas. So here's a sped up clip of what's been happening at that site for the last couple of months. And now we're going to see a massive acceleration because they're no longer, I think they were doing 2 shifts because I had seen some footage from the evening, and they actually have raised the first large concrete pillar on the site. And this is a wonderful thing. Remember, at Battery Day, Elon said, we are spending money as quickly as we can without wasting it. And that's what this is about. They're going to get this factory online and producing automobiles by the end of next year. And that is a critical piece to this puzzle of making electric vehicles available. Once people realize how awesome these vehicles are, it's a tiny fraction, right, of people that are driving EVs today. But once you're at 1%, you only need 7 doublings to get to 100%. And so literally by 2035, if we really wanted to, we absolutely could transition to an entirely electric fleet globally.
This video is great, dude. This video has been flying for like minutes on end, and it's still going over multiple sites that each of their own would be the size of a gigantic building. There's like 10 giant buildings in that footprint that you just flew over just now.
Yeah, I want to show one other video real quick, which is from today, because
It's from today. You're right. It's posted this morning. Look at that. Look how cool it is.
Yeah, there's a team of guys down in Texas that are just passionate for flying their drones over Giga Texas, and I'm going to go visit there at Christmas time,
Oh,
and
sweet.
I'll get to take some of my own drone footage. Hopefully, my son is going to visit from Europe, and we're going to take a road trip with the RV and the Tesla and go see the Southwest and some of the solar construction, and of course projects like this, which just get me super pumped.
Yep.
Well, we've done it again, John. I want to remind our viewers that they can find all of our content at cesnrg.com/videos. I won't bother putting that on screen. We say it every week. We do this every Tuesday or Wednesday. So we're putting out one of these Clean Power Hours every Wednesday. It is episode 20 today. So thank you for being here, John. And how can people find you?
Commercial solar guy. Type it into any of those pieces of machinery that you use to access the World Wide Web, and it will go through a series of tubes, and then it will spit back to you some blue things that you touch, and they'll take you to a digital domain. Commercial solar guy. I'm all over the internet as commercial solar guy. I have a website. I got a Twitter account. I like posting a lot of stuff on Twitter. If you want to get a preview of what I might want to talk about on this show, you follow my Twitter account. You'll start to see stuff. That's my pattern. Find lots of articles there. I like to share a lot. LinkedIn, all these different places, all over the internet. You can find me.
Well, that's all we've got for you. We'll see you next week. Thanks for watching, and let's grow solar and storage. I'm Tim Montague, your co-host. Thanks, John.